now move to the third keynote of today. I would like to invite on stage the Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency, Věra Jourová. Vice President Jourova was the Commissioner for Justice when the GDPR was adopted and entered into force. Also, in her role as Vice President, she's now been vocal on how high we should set the bar of our aspiration and how enforcement needs to be stepped up. Vice President, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you very much for having me at this conference that appears to gather the brightest minds of the data protection world. It is a true pleasure. And also, I am quite glad that you are sitting here in a fridge, because it keeps you alive, awakened. So please don't the announcement that outside is a nice summer as the call to leave. I will not be that long. So, as Wojtek Věvorovský wrote, we need to talk about GDPR. Our GDPR is 4 years old. Indeed, I was at the beginning, and I was accompanying GDPR through the legislative process and then through the selling process to explain to people what is it good for, to explain the big platforms that this is necessary and that we mean it in Europe. I remember when I went to Silicon Valley, sometimes in 2016, I made joke that I am going to America to kiss the ring of the digital gods. And then when over years, 2 more years, when I saw that GDPR is really a tough cookie for them to adapt to, I realized that the time of gods is over. And it was really only a beginning. So I will quote here as well Mr. Buttarelli, who used to say what Madame Zubov mentioned, that GDPR is only the beginning. So we have 4 years old GDPR. We have other kids in town, like the Digital Services Act, Digital Markets Act, Digital Act, or AI Act. And at this moment, I have a temptation to react on some of the sentences of Professor Zubov, whose words were rather encouraging, I have to say. It was worth listening. I think what she was expressing by her very, very strong speech was what I also felt when we started regulating the digital space, that in the past, money was chasing technologies. Technologies were chasing money. And I felt some gap. Where are the people? Where is the law? The law came as the last one. And as also Professor Zubov said, digital world is our world. I think that we need to give the digital space also our rules, because otherwise we might see the danger of accidental dystopia, again the quote, which I more see as a collateral damage to the society. When I speak to the big managers of big tech, they always tell me, well, we do not want to cause the damage to the society. And sometimes they tell me, we do not want to be abused as a highway of crime, hate speech, child pornography, and other horrible things. So my message to them, and now also we reflect this in our regulation, if you do not want to help this crime and other bad things, spying of people, obey with the rules. And it's for us to give the rules. That's why we adopted all those already mentioned pieces of legislation. And they would not be possible. I mean, the Digital Services Act, Digital Markets Act, and AI legislation, they would not be possible without the GDPR. It remains the cornerstone foundation for the European single market and digital single market, and it is probably the most ambitious data protection legislation in the world. I am convinced it ensures a high level of personal data protection and gives a level playing field for companies that take advantage of the free flow of data. More so, it translates the fundamental right to data protection into an operational legal framework and is a key element of our European response to digital challenges. Second of all, the GDPR has passed the first tests and proved to be a rather flexible, reasonable, proportionate, and open piece of legislation. And you might all remember what has been said many times. It is too bureaucratic, some complained. It is too prescriptive, some added. It is too protectionist, lamented some others. And well, I think that now, after several years of testing, we see that they all were proven wrong. The GDPR has allowed for quick and innovative solutions. For instance, during the COVID-19 pandemic, just to name our export hit, which is the digital COVID certificate. Our rules have become an inspiration for other jurisdictions, and there is a truly global trend running. To mention just a few examples, from Chile to South Korea, from Brazil to Japan, from Kenya to India, from South Africa to Indonesia, or from California to Taiwan. And I'm very proud that Europe has set a truly global standard in this respect. Our adequacy decisions enabling the data flows have become an object of desire across the globe and form a basis of a deeper conversation on digital partnerships, like, for instance, with Japan. And our digital diplomacy is in full swing to promote these solutions. Third thing I wanted to mention is that my favorite feature of GDPR is that it is a trust enabler. I hope we can all agree that without people's trust, there will be societal resistance to digital innovation. And while technology speeds up and digital solutions enter almost every aspect of our lives, we will need this trust at a very, very high level. The GDPR is our compass on how to navigate in the digital world. But if everything was so great, we would not have to talk about it. The fact is that the times have changed. Even in the last 4 years, we have a new regulatory environment, we will have new enforcement structures, and I am sure my dear colleague Margaret Vestager talked about it earlier today. To me, the main question is whether we have all the tools in place to achieve the full potential of GDPR and to allow the citizens to fully exercise their data protection rights. I would like to invite you for a journey into the future. Let us consider 3 different scenarios and how they may play out in, say, 5 or 10 years. The first scenario, let's call it more of the same. We don't touch the GDPR. There are some seriously and good reasons for this. Some I already mentioned. The enforcement with the unique one-stop shop model will be more efficient with time. Already today it works better than yesterday. Tomorrow it will be better than it is today. Enforcement by the data protection authorities has ramped up with cumulative fines adding up to 1.55 billion at the end of 2021. Cooperation in cross-border cases has become almost a daily practice. More than 380 decisions were issued by the one-stop shop mechanism, including more than 140 last year only. We will probably also have certain new pieces of legislation that extend protection for particularly sensitive scenarios, such as child sexual abuse online or political advertising, or even maybe finally e-privacy. I hope. And we will, of course, have a range of enforcement structures, often assessing similar, if not the same, legal questions. In this scenario, there is a risk of fragmented enforcement, as the regulators will not have a platform to cooperate among each other. Complex cases like the Cambridge Analytica would be enforced by many different regulators, and we can imagine some unhealthy competition between authorities. Different agencies will be interpreting the same concepts, such as consent. And I can tell you that there will be pressure increasing with every small dispute or big leak or scandal. In fact, this pressure is already here, as we could very well see in the debate and the final enforcement model on the Digital Services of the Digital Services Act. The second scenario, let's call it a revolution. We reopen the GDPR. We address the issue of fragmentation, like the age of consent, for instance. We use the 4-year experience to integrate and clarify certain concepts in line with the EDPB guidelines. We centralize enforcement in one way or another. This might seem tempting, but here risks are high too. Old legislative battles would come back. That is for sure. Some would want to try to weaken what we already have. Centralized enforcement might help to speed up and unify the enforcement, but it would also create risks that the smaller cases would take too long to solve or won't be addressed at all. And I fully share the principle that data protection as a fundamental right must be enforced where the people are. GDPR was not meant only as a law against the big tech. Equally important is surveillance at a local school or the public square. I have one comment. Don't worry. We only have 2 years ahead of us in the current Commission, and we do not plan the revolution. Just to even decrease the temperature in the room. Now, let me explain how I see the third scenario. Let's call it targeted improvements. In this scenario, we recognize that there are certain issues that might work better. As you may suspect, this is my favorite one. I remember that almost from our very first meeting with the Data Protection Board Chair, Andrea Jelinek, Andrea flagged the issue of differences in procedural law across the member states. This slows down cooperation among the data protection authorities in cross-border cases. I think the Commission should investigate a possibility of unifying what can be unified under Union law. The GDPR has harmonized substantive law. Maybe now the time has come to do the same with certain aspects of procedural law. We have done this in other sensitive areas, for instance, in criminal law or consumer law. Another issue to solve is to foresee and anticipate future cooperation with digital services coordinators, with the future enforcement arm of the Commission and other enforcement structures guarding different pieces of digital legislation, including competition authorities. From this place today, I would like to encourage you to think of memoranda of understanding on enforcement between different regulators. This could take shape of a kind of cooperation arrangements between different regulators on how to work together, how to ensure a truly consistent approach on overlapping issues, and how to address complex cases where different pieces of legislation apply at the same time. This would allow you to already put in place what you have learned from the one-stop shop experience. I want to be honest with you. We are at the crunch time now. Either we will all collectively show that GDPR and its enforcement is effective and fit for purpose, or others will do it for us. The expectations are very high. The pressure will only grow because there will be more actors, more emotions, and more competition. I very much appreciate the evolution of the Data Protection Board and its decentralized leadership style. But as the times accelerate, the board should also be able to take a more leading and decisive role. The Secretariat should engage more in policy and regulatory work in the future to reduce the divergence and to ensure more coherence. Last but not least, and this is the message to the governments, the data protection authorities must have appropriate budget and resources. The enforcement is not easy, especially in a complex digital world. There is a need for digital forensic experts, lawyers, and policy experts. And the market competitiveness for this kind of experts will only grow. Remember, we will need an army of people to enforce the Digital Services Act, the Digital Markets Act, AI legislation, the political advertising online, where we are prohibiting micro-targeting of people on the basis of sensitive data. This will be another part of job for the data protection authorities. There will be big hunger for people to work in these areas. It means the public sector has to pay properly the people who will work in these independent public bodies. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, my message is very simple. Let's be more daring, creative, and proactive. Let me stress, I don't think that we have to start from scratch, but I really think that there is still a chance that you can take issues in your own hands. You are the most experienced, the most active, and most numerous, but it won't be the case for long. Of course, the Commission will be on your side. We will support you and keep pressure on the Member States to provide you with financial resources you require. I myself had numerous discussions with the Ministers of Finance, begging for money, and I hereby declare that I am willing to continue till the end of my days in high position when even the Ministers of Finance are willing to listen to me. Ladies and gentlemen, now I will conclude. I think we are in a very good place to unlock the full potential of the GDPR. I must say I am really happy to see how the debate is evolving. But I must also say that there should be no taboo in our discussions. We must not close the doors to regulatory changes just because this world appears uncomfortable. This would appear uncomfortable. We regulate to either help the people or to address societal risks. This should be our ultimate lighthouse on the horizon. I have indicated to you where I see areas of improvements, and this is my opening gambit. I hope to hear your feedback over the course of the conference or in the future discussions. So while I am expecting that we will all go together through many ups and downs, I am confident that the GDPR will be our compass on how to address the challenges that we'll be facing in the new digital decade. Thank you very much.